Look, I just wanted to go to your submission first. In particular, on page, I think 68, just making sure that's your submission, not my PDF, but 68. You say that CIS videos also claim CSIRO had demonstrated that coal is the cheapest, all fictitious claims amplified in multiple friendly media venues. I'm looking at the GenCost report from which that claim was made by the CIS. It was the 25-26 final draft last year, released in July. I'm looking on page 96, appendix table B10. The cheapest that the CSIRO estimates coal to be at is $111 a megawatt hour. The cheapest for wind and solar with integration is $116 a megawatt hour. I'm just wondering, on what basis are you claiming the CIS is making a fictitious claim then, when clearly on the data from the CSIRO coal is the cheapest in 2024?
I don't have that table in front of me, but the executive summary that I have read of the last 2 or 3 GenCost reports have explicitly said that renewable energy is the cheapest form of energy. And again, I think the issue here is that, as I mentioned earlier, the GenCost report does not take into account the catastrophic effect of floods, bushfires, heat waves, or attempt to cost them. And the other question here is, I think that even if renewable energy was 10 times more expensive than coal, we should still do it 100%, because coal, oil and gas will make the earth uninhabitable, and it is doing so. And the oil companies have known that.
I might come back to that, but this is just a small example, right? And I'm not looking to hang, draw and quarter you over one claim, but to me this goes to the heart of the problems of this inquiry, is that no one has a monopoly on knowledge. So that claim, coal is the cheapest form of power according to the CSIRO GenCost report, clearly has an evidential basis if you go to table B.10 and page 96. I have debates with people about the use of the word is. So coal is the cheapest form of energy. When the CSIRO says it, they seem to be indicating that it will be in 2030 the cheapest form. That's true on table B.10, but I'm not sure why you wouldn't use the future tense, will be, rather than the present tense of is, if your prediction is it's going to be that case in now 4 years' time, 5 years' time when this report was released. But to me, this is the problem, that there is no individual government agency body that has a monopoly on knowledge. So who gets to determine what is right and wrong if just even very simple claim in your submission is at the very least contestable, I would say, looking like incorrect?
I'm not really sure what the question is, but I think that
Well, who gets to determine? Who do you think? I mean,
Well, let me take it back. What is the Centre for Independent Studies, and who pays for it?
You made your submission are contestable. My position is that we should have free and open debate to decide, and then ultimately democratic system, etc., etc. But the imputation from your submission, and certainly many people in this inquiry, is that some views should be simply censored or suppressed or not heard. So I'm saying...
I'm saying something quite different. I'm saying something quite different. What I'm saying is that that the Atlas Network think tanks like the CIS, they legally deceive the public about who and what they work for. They claim to be not-for-profit when all the evidence is that they, including their own internal correspondence, I have a letter here from John Benithan. I'd be happy to share it to the chair. I have copies of it, talking about the foundation of it from one oil executive to another, saying that we've got a way of getting academics who the public legitimately recognises as non-profit, public-minded, ethical producers of truthful, or at least as best they know, truthful information. That the point of them is to displace it with messages sponsored by fossil fuel industry and others to deceive the public about who that is. And it specifically says here, what you may say, this is John Benithan from Santos talking to John Murchison of a major Texas oil company that set up Santos as well here. What you may say, what any business will say, is put down by many to vested interest. Fisher, the founder of the Atlas Network, has a technique of getting academics to say and write under their own names what business cannot say for itself. That is what they're there for. He says, he concludes, I'm trying to get an institute going here. If you can get or help to get the idea going in the USA, this is 1976, that will be excellent. Fisher's ideas as to methods of getting academics to say things that oil companies want the public to hear without them knowing that it's coming from oil companies should be of real interest and benefit, and incidentally, they should benefit you. They should increase your profits.
Is that from 1976?
That's correct, yep.
Right, okay. Just taking another part of the submission, page 59, you say the energy payoff period for a wind turbine rated for 30 years work is around 5 to 12 months. A single 15 megawatt wind turbine operating at 55% capacity produce over 30 years electricity equivalent to some 985 million litres of petrol. I'm not aware of a wind turbine of that size. Nor
there's one minute.
Well, okay, tell me, where?
It's interesting because that was the only quibble that the National Rational Energy Network had about my submission.
So are they installed?
There is Vestas has a 15 megawatt turbine. Okay. I believe there's one now made in China that's 17 megawatts. Right. But this is sorry, yeah. Yeah,
55% capacity. The latest data shows about 29% for wind.
I don't claim that is exactly what... we don't have an offshore wind industry in Australia. I don't know what...
Oh, so this is offshore wind, is it? Sorry? Okay. Yeah, they can be bigger.
That is, I explicitly say if we assume that. I don't claim that is exactly the correct figure because we don't know yet.
Okay.
Because those investors have been effectively scared off by the wind farms are going to kill all the whales campaign that's being operated here in Australia, which is again an extension of the US Atlas Network campaign.
Yeah, look, I should have said up front. I meant to say up front. I'd never heard of the Atlas Network before this inquiry.
Well, you're not supposed to have. See, no one's supposed to have.
Yes, it's all very secret.
It is
to me.
It is.
Yeah, it's running the world.
Not anymore. I've made them famous now.
Okay, all right, okay. I think the problem we've got here is that I've heard you say a couple of times that the biosphere will end, etc.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
I suppose if...
Sorry, could you repeat that? Sorry, Senator Canavan, could you just repeat what you said then? We missed it.
Yeah, sure. I think the problem here is that I've heard you say a couple of times about climate change being equivalent to murder or the biosphere ending, and I suppose if you have that view, the problem is you don't think any debate about the pace of change, etc., is legitimate. But I suppose, things seem to be moving fast on this because, while you're saying that this is all due to nefarious interests, Bill Gates wrote a piece a few months ago where he said, and I quote, "Climate change is a serious problem, but it will not be the end of civilization." Now, he's been a very strong advocate for climate change. A lot of people are now coming to a similar conclusion. I suppose I want to know, do you think such a claim, such a statement, assertion, that this is a problem but not the end of everything, is that a legitimate point to have in this debate?
No, it's not.
Okay, let's have...
It's not because this has been, as I say, and I would recommend that you read directly the internal scientific reports given to Shell executives in 1986. And there's a whole string of internal scientific reports given to Exxon management going from the 70s up to the 80s, where they explicitly talk about, and I quote them directly, Shell's own scientists say, for example, that ocean acidification could lead to the rapid disappearance of entire coral islands from acidification. What's happened is they've been killed by heat before acidification. They also say entire nations like Bangladesh will have to be abandoned. That's, 80 or 90 people. They said this themselves. And that was 40 years ago, and they've still are financing climate disinformation. So I would recommend you read what the oil industry itself says about this matter.
Well, I don't believe everything the oil industry says. I'll put that on the record, and maybe you do. But the problem is many of these predictions were made 10, 20, 30 years, 40 years ago, and they haven't come true. The problem here is how do you, and Bill Gates wrote a very considered piece, I thought, about this, where he was looking at balancing other issues. There are millions of people in this world that die from indoor air pollution every year, primarily because there's not the availability of cheap electricity. So if you slow down the use of energy sources, you will kill more people. And so how do we balance up? Isn't it legitimate to have a debate then? I mean, certainly in countries like India and China and Southeast Asia, they have this debate. So I'm just trying to understand.
I'm happy to give you an answer.
Right, we're just going to have to make this the last question. I'm going to have to rotate the call.
You can, while I'm not saying that we should slow down the use of energy sources, I'm saying that we should, and this is, I mean, you know, even like one of Richard Nixon's key advisors wrote him a letter which I can happily send you. He says, you know, in response to their own scientific report, saying the only solution here is to stop burning fossil fuels, and that's been well known. Since, yeah, 1969.
Chair.
And we don't need, you know, okay, if you're concerned, I also am concerned about you know, the living standards of poor people.
Sorry, Senator Canavan, generally we are struggling.
More
they can have solar power
in the here and now, but Richard Nixon. Oh, okay. All right.
One of his advisors.
We were struggling to hear what you were saying there.